This week's podcast is brought to you by Bitten's Roadhouse. Looking for the comforts of a home-cooked meal without the time and mess? Make the short trip to Garvin and enjoy a delicious dinner at Bitten's Roadhouse. Half-pound hamburgers, beef commercials, wraps, pizza, and more. Friday night specials include barbecue ribs or homemade Alfredo. Saturday night, stop in for amazing prime rib. Make your reservations today because they fill up fast. 507-746-4524. Open 6 days a week. It's worth the trip to Garvin for a stop at Bitten's Roadhouse.
Welcome to another edition of the Headlight Hot Seat. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year to my guest, Mr. Tom Dobson. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
You bet. Thank you for asking. Happy New Year to you.
And Tom is the Community Development Director in Tracy. But before we get to that, let's get to know Tom a little bit. Let's go through your biography, Tom. You can keep it short and sweet, or you can expand on it as much as you can.
Okay. Once again, Tom Dobson. I came to Tracy as a 3-year-old in 1961. Not many people know that I was adopted. Many of them know my dad was Homer Dobson and my mom was Betty Dobson. And I grew up across from Central Park in Parsonage at 119 Roland Street and graduated from high school in 1977, back when it was Scrappers, and left as most all of my classmates for college. Never thought that I would return other than to visit mom and dad and come back for a boxcar day once in a while. I went to school in a small Bible college out in Huron, South Dakota, the same place both my mom and dad attended, so kind of the path of least resistance, I guess. Graduated from there and went on to seminary down in Cincinnati, Ohio, at Cincinnati Bible Seminary, and was actually in a ministry for several years, both in Kentucky and here in Minnesota, and then decided that as the second little one was arriving that might need something a little bit more to support a family. It's I enjoyed it, but it's one of those fields that I don't think you know whether you're cut out for it until you're actually all the way in up to your waist. And
I can relate, Tom.
And I did enjoy most of it. I don't know that I was right for it at the time either. And so I went into business, and that's kind of where my career has taken me through the years.
So I've always wanted to ask you this, and I've known you for a long time. What was it like being the son of Homer Dobson?
Well, at the time, I guess not having anything to compare it with, it was just like growing up in any other household. Certainly there were some differences, but I never missed a Sunday, never missed a Sunday night. And then back in those days, we even had a Wednesday night Bible study. So I was probably at the church more than any other kid in the city of Tracy, but came with the territory. But no, I was very, very fortunate to grow up in that household. Dad and mom were adopted me, brought me back to Tracy. I was an only child, and my wife gives me a hard time about that. But no, it was a great opportunity. Mom and dad were the same behind closed doors as they were out in public, and that's unusual sometimes, specifically even in that career path. But dad was very busy. So
Well, that's kind of the reason I asked, is because he was such an influencer in town. This is a different kind of influencer than what we talk about today, but he had his feet in so many different pools of water, didn't he? I mean, he was mayor.
Yep.
And just he served on a number of boards. He had connection with the airport, with the hospital, I believe, too.
Yep.
I mean, when you say busy, that's an understatement.
Well, and then beyond that, he had a full-time job.
Sure.
He was instrumental in pretty much the driving force of getting Christian Manor Nursing Home here in Tracy, both from just start to finish, and then he served as the administrator for 25 years or more. So that was a very full-time job, both as an employer, but also there were a lot of nights he was back out there scrubbing actually floors, working on the boiler, plowing snow. So yeah, he was there a lot, but he was at home a lot too. And so,
But
it was a good childhood.
Do you kind of model yourself after him? I mean, you have to look up to him for being your father figure, but are you inspired by that, by all he did? And does that, kind of drive you to volunteer and do things like that?
I don't know if that's the driving force. There's no way I'm trying to fill his shoes or try to keep up with him. I did probably parent a little differently. I wasn't as involved when the kids were young, maybe a little bit because of that, because I recognized that I wanted to be a little more involved. But But that was a different time period too.
Yeah.
That when we were growing up, not to seem kind of odd in this day and age, but our dads were gone working, our moms were home when we were home, and that's just kind of the way that it was. And a lot of times they were involved with other
Hmm.
extracurricular activities from golfing or whatever. And so it just, so we were left to run the town, and that was a great childhood too. No, I think I'm kind of wired that way, to get involved, and I tend to not be able to say no as much as I probably should. But I enjoy being involved, and this has been a real treat. We'd come back to Tracy I came back for about 2 years. Nancy, my wife, was still finishing up a contract out in California at the time, and so I came back because mom and dad were starting to need a little help. And I worked up in Marshall at U.S. Bank and lived here in town in the parsonage, the house I grew up in. But just wasn't the right timing, I think, at that moment. And we were here for about 3 years, and then we headed south to Phoenix, thinking we would begin our pre-retirement work schedule down there. But as with any great plans,
Yeah, right. You mentioned growing up. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Give me one of your finest memories of being a kid in Tracy, or your younger years in Tracy, whether it's skating at the park or Stinker Days or the vibrancy of a downtown. What?
all
Just
of
paint a picture.
all of the above. I think the ability just to run, bike primarily, from one side of town to the other, just all day long. Where was the baseball game going to be? Was it out by the pool? No, got out there. Nope, nobody around. Oh, it must be at the opposite end of town. So
Yeah.
we were all the way over by Legion then at that point in time. And, swimming lessons and back in the afternoon, like you said, the pool. It was kind of an open environment too. I just enjoyed kind of dropping in certain places. The old canvas shop, the paper drop, just to see what Lessman was doing or what they were doing
Yeah.
over at the lumber yard or over at the railroad or any number of places. I would, if you were bored, there was plenty of things to go watch. And
Well, you're talking about what is referred to commonly as the halcyon days, and it's so different now. And I think growing up, even back when I grew up as a kid in the '70s, it's so different than it is today. And I feel fortunate to have lived the childhood I had, because like you said, you were outside all the time. You were riding your bike. There was always a pickup baseball game or basketball game. And nowadays, they still get out, but if they're not in organized sports, which is a year-round thing, they're on their computers,
Yeah.
their laptop, their screens, their cell phone.
yeah, we didn't have anything even remotely
No.
connected to that. I mean, might have had a close and play record collection at the time, but there wasn't much else to do at home.
Yeah.
You'd watch television, but we got 3 channels, so
Well, exactly, and that means you were outside all the time.
yeah.
You came home when the street lights came on,
Or the whistle went off.
or the whistle went.
9:30, better be home.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just briefly, Tom, tell us, what does your job as a community development director entail? You used to be the EDA director. What do you do as a community development director? What are your goals? What do you have to oversee in your position?
Sure. So the community development director is kind of the umbrella name or the position, and under it, one of my primary tasks is then the economic development authority. So the EDA director is probably my number one job, and then I don't know if it was because Jeff, who I came after, had some of these things on his agenda, or I think in a couple instances I said yes to something new. So along with that, I also then I'm in charge of the pool during the summer, so the aquatic center. I don't do a lot of the day-to-day stuff on that, but that's kind of one of my responsibilities, is to kind of get it up and running in the beginning of the year and then close down. But our manager does an excellent job. The kids out there are great to work with. This year, I also took over the responsibility for the cemetery as well. So for a period of time after Petey had passed away, one of the other city workers was doing that, and it just wasn't a good fit for him. And it was something I was interested in. I've always kind of been, I don't know, I've been not excited about cemetery, but interested, I guess.
And fascinating in a weird sort of way.
It
Kind
is.
of yeah, I can see that.
And
I
then
understand.
especially ours, because I wander out there and it's like a who's who of people that I haven't thought of for years and years. People that I knew when I was a kid, and then later as an adolescent, or in high school, and now even more and more, as I walk through there, it's great memories. So
Well,
I've enjoyed working that.
it definitely means different things to someone who has a history here,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to someone coming in from out of town and now he's taking care of the cemetery. He doesn't know the names
Right.
or the people, their stories behind it, and everyone has a story to tell, and you know a lot about that because, excuse me, because you grew up here.
Yeah. And then, there's just other varying tasks that a lot of the community development director we do. I help with burgers, bands, and brews, and movies in the park, and some of those things. And then certainly been try to be very involved with the community center, the new community center, and I'll be trying to get more programs working with our seniors as well as other community members. Worked with the school and some of the other organizations in town to try to just coordinate our shared interests in parks
Yep.
and programming.
So the reason Tom is here today is I always do a story to start every year, kind of a look ahead to the coming year with our city administrator. Jeff is out of town, out of state. I hear. I think in Vegas,
Yep.
visiting his son. Lucky dog. So Tom agreed to fill in for him. He's kind of his right hand man. But before we look ahead to 26, let's just kind of flash back to the year that is over now. Some high points that really made a difference in our town. I mean, there are probably a number of them.
Yeah, I hadn't done this before. This is kind of my first full year. I started in 24, so this is my first full year to kind of take a look back. So last week, sometime, I started kind of going back through month by month. We do each of us as department heads submit a department head report to the city council on the second city council meeting of each month, and so that was an easy way for me to kind of go back through January through December of okay, what happened every month that I reported, and I came up with actually 3 pages full of things that we did this year, and it was I'm thinking this was a pretty momentous year, but I'm hoping we can do nearly as much in 2026, but we accomplished some pretty big things, and so I took that down. I can kind of go through maybe a top 10.
Yeah, let's
one by
fire them
one.
off.
I think one of the big things was the 2 new homes that were built out on Front Street through a program with United Community Action Partnership, UCAP. Those were both completed in the spring of the year and have both been sold. And I think that's a pretty big thing for Tracy is to have, those were 2 of 3 new homes. There was a private home that was built kind of out in that same area as well and completed in 2025. So 3 brand new homes. I thought that was, and it kind of got our direction focused on Front Street, and we'll see kind of where that goes. But it did kind of at least give us a place and an idea of some city-owned land that
Yeah.
could be developed in the future. It wasn't a big thing, but it was something that I'd been perplexed by, and I think it was a hot topic in the city of Tracy. We finally saw Center Street Railroad Crossing repaired, new timbers and asphalt.
Don't underestimate that project. and Chad, Dr. Anderson can attest to this, and you and myself and Mr. Carpenter probably as well. That much needed project smoothing that area out was.
Oh my, yeah, and it was. And looking back on it, that was a challenge. We got it done. It went well, and I joke with people we may need to put a speed bump out there now just to kind of slow people down over that thing. We got kind of brave now. We go sailing.
Well, it's just such a difference. It's,
No, it needed to be done, and I know it really kind of came to a head when Chad Anderson reached out to me as well, and just from a safety standpoint of their buses going across it. And
with
I
school
knew
coming up, and
we
that,
could not go into a new school year with
Yeah.
that. I don't know what we would have to do, but I was going to be a thorn in the flesh of somebody out
Mm-hmm.
there. So the squeaky wheel, and I can squeak. So
Absolutely.
we got that done. Hey, something that we did together too, I thought was pretty interesting, and I put it on my list is we got the 2025 Tracy Visitors magazine out there. And I hats off to you guys. That is a professionally done. I don't know another community out of maybe Bloomington or Lakeville.
Yeah,
that
I don't think
would
a lot of
have
cities do
anything
it.
even close to that.
Well, it's such an important. It's probably one of our most important projects of the year. We're more than a paper. We do these things, but this one is all about Tracy,
Yeah,
and that's what makes it so special for us. And we kind of it's a source of pride for us to be able to do that. So
well, and you do a fantastic job. I mean, the pictures, the reporting, but I mean that gives me a lot of pride to be able to give that out.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to events where there's other communities, and And it points out something that I've said over and over and over again is we have so many things of a city of 2,100 people. We're spoiled because that's all we know.
Yeah.
And we just take it for granted. And I start talking with communities that are twice our size and sometimes even larger, and they don't have a good share of the things that we have. They would die to have a number of them. And so that magazine just is one more thing where you hand it out, and it makes us look like we might know what we're doing here.
Yeah, and it's a bragging point for everyone, not just us, but you guys and the city officials. You hand it out with, like you said, with pride and excitement.
Yeah. Oh,
Not
yeah.
just here, I guess you got to look at this thing and whatever. That's why we put so much work into it. And it's not cheap, but if you want to make money, spend money type of thing. If you
Yeah.
want to draw people to town and brag about your town, you got to do it the right way.
Yeah, yeah, and that's from my vantage point as EDA director, community development director. I mean, that's probably one of my best tools to use.
Good.
Let's see, we as I said, I took over the cemetery superintendent role, so that changed a lot of things kind of going into the summer and into the year. We applied for the EDA housing, myself, whatever. We applied for 2 grants in 2025. One was for a what they call a local housing trust fund, and this was matching dollars that came out of the state of Minnesota housing, and they would match up to 150,000. We had quite a bit more than that sitting in our housing fund already, and it would accomplish the same things that we would want to accomplish through housing anyway. So the city council, the EDA, and then the city council both agreed to set aside that amount of money into what they call the housing trust fund, and we then applied and we were granted a full match. So we received another $150,000 from the state of Minnesota. Those are reimbursement funds. We won't be receiving those until we spend them, but that gave me an opportunity to begin working on some additional housing ideas, and that's probably what will take a good share of 2026 and 27 is getting these rolled out. And if that wasn't good news, then we also applied for a $100,000 grant. That was not a matching grant, but just $100,000. That was called the Tier 2 housing program. And so Tier 2 cities are cities that are under 10,000. And so the state of Minnesota through Minnesota Housing has been sending funds to counties and then to Tier 1 cities for a number of years. This was the first time that Greater Minnesota had an opportunity to apply. And so I applied, and we received word that we were also granted an additional $100,000. So if you combine that with what we have sitting in the matching trust fund, we've got almost over $400,000 to work with. So some of the things we'll be looking at, jump ahead a little bit to 2026, 27 would be certainly in helping individuals in the housing area. And we'll get into maybe some more of these details when we get to the
Sure.
26
Yep.
recap. The new community center is pretty actively involved getting that, from buying it to now getting through the architectural and design and the bidding process. And so I'll be involved with that through the spring as construction begins on it. And we get that set up for community use. That's probably enough for now. I got
Yeah, that'll work. I guess you can sum it up by saying it was a big year.
a big year.
And I like to look back sometimes because people always tend to forget about what happened. And that's, we just put out our edition, our end of the year, or, review, recap. And even when I'm going back through all these pages and archives, oh, I forgot about that,
Yeah.
or I forgot about that. So,
It's easy to
pretty
because
cool.
we just get going and we don't
Yeah.
even realize, oh, yeah, we put in a brand new park. Oh, yeah. we
Oh,
did
yeah,
this.
there's the
Oh,
park.
Yeah, we did that. We put up new hangars. Where do you go? It's, like I said, when I was totaling this up, I in the back of my mind thought, how are we going to follow up that act? That's a big
Well,
year.
it was a big year, but I'm sure we can do it. Now, I didn't ask you to bring a crystal ball in today to the studio, but let's look ahead a little bit to 2026. Maybe some bullet points we can look at. We just briefly touched on the parks. What's next for our parks? I mean, the park board did such a wonderful job in fundraising and doing everything and getting for that new playground equipment, which is one of the best centerpieces of a park you'll see. I remember having people from Marshall stop me and say, God, I wish Marshall could have something like that. That's high praise
Yeah.
for a city. Usually it's the other way around. Like, oh,
yeah.
Marshall's got this. Tracy has this now.
Yeah.
So we all know that that's just a great centerpiece for one of, probably the most important park in town. The sidewalk has been laid for the perimeter
Yep.
around the park,
Got
and
that in before freezing.
yep, and there's more to come with the walking loop
yeah.
and everything. But what about other parks? Is there plans? Maybe we can refresh this here or add this here for other
You know,
parks.
I kind of hesitate to get into too much of detail because I really am not as involved with parks as
Okay.
somebody might think that I would be. Primarily because that committee is so well run. I mean, and participate in the parks committee is by design or by the way that it functions right now is the way a committee should
Well,
function.
right.
There's not a lot of that we need to get involved with it other than to
And that's a good thing.
when you need me to do something, let me know. But
Well, I think-
I would have them in at some point in time. and
Yeah,
kinda
very
go
much.
through their plans because they do have they're working on more benches. I know the ice skating rink and a new warming house is on their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be doing some work on the band shell. We would hope that we could have got the roof on that. That's part of 2025 expenditure that was budgeted for is to put a new roof, which probably predates both of us.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's been
sure.
worked on since we were playing over there.
So can that money be shifted to the 2026?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think they just. It is interesting. I've learned a lot about budgeting, and for municipalities, it is different than anything I've done either personally or through a business. But yes, the funds, even while they were budgeted last year, if they're not in this year's budget, oftentimes those funds, if they weren't spent, are sitting in our reserves. They we don't send money back anyplace if we don't use it. But I think the parks budget has that wrapped in it. So there's some electrical work to do out there.
Yep.
We've already done a little bit of it. Certainly did some plumbing through the entire park, and that was part of a donation from a local family as well. And so that group has done really well with getting kind of the larger community involved, not even just the city of Tracy, but residents that have moved away
Right.
that have grown up here and been involved and loved our parks are our supporters. So
Well, they all share a common goal, and they're all passionate about the parks.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes them so good at what they're doing.
Yep.
If they didn't care, you'd be able to know.
Yeah.
But they honestly care. And then Sebastian Park, new playground equipment coming
Yes.
in 26.
That's as I understand it, yes. Okay. That also was another one of those matching grants through I don't know if this is how little I know. I don't know whether we're using the same provider. There are a couple,
Okay.
3 or 4 different playground providers, and from what I found out, some of them honor the same type of a program. I think that last one we got was kind of a federal grant, but it was actually through the supplier. And so this one also, I believe, is a 50% match,
And I know that I've written about it. It's public knowledge that there is new playground equipment coming, and the stuff out there doesn't look that old now, but it's wear and tear, and it needs to be replaced, doesn't it?
yeah, and I don't remember what the year was, but I think when we started looking back, it shocked everybody. It's like, really? It's been there that long?
20 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting close. I think
Yeah.
18, 19, something like that. And so the plastic, some of the things that need to be replaced, we replaced a few things like that at the pool, but they were just small little, one stairway and one chute or a slide or whatever. But boy, if you have to replace that whole thing, you're just about as well off just to start from scratch. And so that's what they found is that it'd be easier to begin rather than replace a few parts and then next year replace a few more. And then you have that liability exposure with kids out
Yeah.
there too. If stuff is starting to kind of fall apart, we don't want anybody to get hurt.
It's hard to piecemeal something like a playground equipment, playground equipment, because the old contrasts with the new, and
Right.
what's the point? I mean,
You just don't bolt it on again because you
Yeah.
can't find,
Yeah.
I'd like that same slide from 19 years ago. You got one of those sitting around someplace.
yeah, right. You mentioned housing a little bit. Are there plans for additional housing? And I know you have to speak in generalities, Tom, but can you give us a little insight? We're thinking about this, or we hope to do that. This is kind of a wish list too.
Sure. Yeah, and I do the same thing. I began kind of looking forward to 2026, 27, doing some plans in the future. One of the things we need to complete, and as quickly as we can this spring, is the 2nd Street East spec house that we began a couple of years or about a year and a half ago. Need to complete that, get that sold. We've got some money tied up in that from housing as well as some monies from the county that we would like to bring back in again. And so whether or not we, excuse me, whether we start another one before that one is sold, it's not out of the question, but it would be quite a chore to get that kind of sold. to the council to start something new when we
No,
have one
right.
sitting there. I think what we've kind of discovered also is in the new construction, the cost is somewhat prohibited to try to build in this day and age a brand new spec house, and that's why you don't see a lot of them. I mean, we're sitting in a unique position where we don't really have to make a profit on it, and it still is kind of a scary situation, let alone being a developer that actually has to put a house out there.
Yeah.
And if they have to carry any kind of a mortgage on it or a builder's contract through it. So it's just the costs have gotten so high that, it's tough to build anything for under $300,000. And that's even if you own the lot. I think what we're going to look at is a lot more of maybe remodeling, both for individuals who need to do some remodeling. We've done 3 or 4, or probably 4 or 5 programs through deed, small cities development loans that allowed us to help homeowners with new roofs and siding and furnaces and those kind of things. I think what we wanted to also do is maybe try to encourage individuals to be able to get into houses. And so that's some of our housing dollars that I'd mentioned before that we were granted, or for not necessarily first-time home buyers, but moderate to low-income
Right.
buyers, some of which may have been, this might be their first buying experience, so to help with down payment assistance, or in some circumstances, maybe to lower interest rates. There are ways of doing that help an individual not only just to get into the house, but for the next 15, 20, 30 years to be able to afford to stay in that house. And I'd like to see if we could not, in some circumstances, maybe pick up a house that needs some loving attention and then remodel it for sale as opposed to starting from
Okay.
fresh. So making sure that the furnace is up to date and the water heater's up to date, a new roof, maybe better windows, almost a gut job, but to put a product out there that then a buyer, especially a first-time home buyer, can buy with some degree of security, and that knowing that they're not going to have a big ticket item that goes out after only owning it for a year or two. And that's maybe a direction. I've worked a little bit with Habitat for Humanity out of Marshall, and it's maybe something that we might partner with. Nice thing of working with them is they don't necessarily have to build new construction. From what I understand, they do one per, I think every 3 years is what they really only have to do to keep their whatever contract. And so they've also found the same thing, that remodeling is definitely a better way to go.
Well, it kind of meets in the middle of the purpose of housing. There's, on the one hand, there's let's build new, like we had done on Front Street. On the other hand, there's let's take a home, an existing home, TLC, like you said, and get someone to move in there. It saves us. It serves. That's easy. Serves the same purpose.
Yeah.
It's just not brand new. It's much more affordable.
Right.
In the red tape and all that, you don't have to go through all that stuff. If you have an existing home, let's use that. And kind of along those lines, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the cleanup Tracy project. That kind of,
Yeah.
of course, 2025, but that's going to carry over in the next year, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, we've got a lot more work to do. I think we tore down 4 or 5 houses this last year, primarily during this early or late spring, early summer, through the summer.
Might be a record for Tracy.
Well, I think it was, and it's been a long time in coming. Some of the things we couldn't tear down that need to were involved with the state of Minnesota and the tax forfeiture situation, and it looks like we're back to the drawing board on that. There were a number of homes that I thought had sold, only to come to find out, nope, they did not close on them. There was no real teeth involved through the auction
Yeah.
to enforce bidders to take responsibility if they bid on something to actually close on it. So we didn't sell a single house.
Nothing.
We sold 4 lots. That's it.
Okay.
4 lots.
Well, that's something, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
something,
That's
but
a that's a stocking stuffer, though. The main present was things like the Anderson building,
Yeah.
which I think you and I were both on the same page. We were pretty excited to see that, whatever the number was. And
I'm a Minnesotan, so I had my doubts.
Well, sure.
Like, let's see, but I thought, let's give it a chance. Maybe there's somebody out there that could see a promise here and
it just didn't
take it
come to
on,
fruition
and
at all.
No, disappeared. And so we're right back to square one, where we probably have. Well, we've budgeted for the new year, and if we can take down, I'm thinking out loud, maybe 3. It's not cheap, especially to what size the homes are and that kind of thing, to get those hauled away these days. And we're finding out. I think you and I are both at a meeting at Lyon County, where that construction waste is beginning to be an issue in a lot of our landfills, and so we're gonna hopefully ramp up and try to get as many homes down before we run into new edicts out of St. Paul but it does complicate things because now we have to deal with the state of Minnesota. A number of these homes are not, there's not an owner. We can't send something to them. So we'll be working with the county, trying to maneuver our way through this process. Okay, well, who do we file a raise order to take that building
And then,
down?
yeah, and that goes to the state, and that takes
Yeah.
time. The wheels
Well, and
turn
then
pretty slow.
Yeah, and then it changes the valuation of that. So now all of a sudden they don't have a house on it any longer, which the house itself probably was a deterrent from anybody
Yeah.
wanting that lot anyway. But I mean, that's what kept the values on this auction so high. So we'll see that, and but yeah, we'll be tearing down a few more homes, a couple garages here and there. But what we've tried to do is on the other side is help individuals actually catch these before they get to that point.
Sure.
Where we cannot build fast enough to catch up if we continue to lose homes. And so the county, in dealing with their new plan for the foreseeable future, their comp plan, actually had a place in there working with local communities to try to avoid that process and get on some of these tax forfeitures very early in the process, figure out who actually owns them. Do they want out? They clearly don't want the house any longer. They've left it as it is, no heat, nobody taking care of the lot. And you just can't leave a house empty for very long in our weather conditions and hope that it's going to survive. And that's what we found. Some of them look great from the outside,
Yeah.
and you walk inside and, they're gone. They're just gone.
And then the only tenants are raccoons and rabbits.
Yep, we got a few.
Literally,
of those.
we're not joking here. Let's have this is kind of a weird subject, but a quick hotel update. I don't know if people are just kind of being the Minnesotan that they are, pessimistic. It's not going to happen. It's been this long. Nothing's going on. Is there anything you can tell everyone that maybe gives us hope, or just update us on how that process is going?
I have hope. I do not know where we are right at this point in time, other than to visit with a few individuals that still have an interest in being, part of the financial part of this, and that's where we're really at. Is, if someone would have won that lottery last week,
I tried.
myself. That would have been. I told my wife that's the first thing I was going to do is that hotel would be started.
Yeah.
But
You'd have the shovel out there right now.
Yeah, I had to get the gold shovels. Let's get this thing going. No, I have talked with. This is kind of a whole lot more of the Tracy Development Corp. Kind of, they've taken the reins of this and been working with it, and so I've been involved from. They invite me to meetings, and certainly I will help any way that I possibly can. And
with your
I'll stay
checkbook?
on them. I wish. I'll help buy a couple pillows for a couple of the rooms
Yeah,
or
right.
something. No, we definitely need that. I've not met anybody out there that has said, "Nah, we don't need that." Now, how big of a hotel? Does it need to have a pool or not? I mean, all those things are open to conjecture. I think that group, in working with Wyndham, has done a wonderful job of figuring out, okay, what really is going to be necessary in the marketplace. What's kind of the smallest footprint, but one that will do a good job of being a profit maker for the investors. What Tracy can be proud of. And I think the timing is really good right now. Certainly, having a pretty good year agriculturally in our communities has helped and relieved, I think, a little bit of concern about the future. But it is still it's a challenge. It will be a challenge. And I talked to Community Mountain Lake, I want to say. Is that over by St. James, Medelia?
Yeah,
Over in
yeah.
that area. They built a brand new. They have one going up right now. A brand new American. They're a community about our size, and so I talked to their economic development director because I knew they were going to be building this. And the one thing that he shared was something that I also had. I guess I kind of asked him the question: was the investors who stepped up, was this primarily a community-minded investing group? And he said yes, absolutely. Every single one of them was doing this for the community. Certainly it's an investment, and nobody just wants to hand over a pretty good sized check and not get anything in return for it. Although thankfully many individuals do that, and they do make bequests and awards and what have you. But this is one that is kind of a combination of both things. It's not the normal profit maker, but it will, and it also is something that our community definitely needs. I mean, from individuals coming back for funerals for family members and no place to stay, through the 3 weekends of the festival over in Walnut Grove. People
Yep.
are driving in from Mankato and Brookings. And our weekends, you just mentioned some of the things that go on here for our wrestling tournaments and basketball tournaments. Most of the coaches have said they could do a 2-day if there was some place for people
Absolutely.
to stay.
Yep.
So I mean, just every bit
Without driving to Marshall.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then and then the caboose and having weddings and anniversaries and being able just to drive or to walk next door and stay overnight rather than get in a car. And I think it's probably one of our biggest things right now that we need in Tracy is that hotel. So I'll be on it.
Let's close out by traveling a little bit north. The hangar at the airport. On the surface, people say, "I don't have a plane. I don't care.
Yeah.
Why do we have to build this?"
Yep.
It's that cynicism that we all have. What's the importance of that hangar? And how nice is it to have? Because you can compare it to the old one right now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it's night and day.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. But the investment that we made, the city made, what some people think is for a bunch of rich pilots. That's the overview that people.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not
I hear
right,
that.
but
I hear that. Yeah, and I guess I'm a little bit too close to the airport to be able to be completely objective. When I moved to Tracy or when I've talked with individuals, the two things that are near and dear to my heart are the ambulance service in town and the airport, because Dad was very, very involved with both of those. And you're right. From a clearly standpoint of saying, what do I get as a normal citizen out here for the money that is put into that airport? It's a little tough. Certainly, I think 2 or 3 individuals through the years, from what I heard, that were a little negative on the airport, later became very positive when the air ambulance was necessary for either themselves or a family member. That's an easy one to point to. Is there's times that the helicopter cannot make it in for whatever reason, and so being able to land there, that also brings a lot of the doctors and some of the caregivers to the city of Tracy. I'm out there once in a while, and need to give somebody a ride back out or whatever. The staff that come to our local hospital fly in, and if it weren't for that, we may not have some of the professionals to be at our local. From an EDA standpoint, as I said before, there's communities twice our size, maybe even 3 or 4 times our size, that don't have an airport. If I asked any of them to trade, well, yeah, in a heartbeat. The thing that I think most people don't realize is that came to us through some really, really good programs through the FAA and through the state, and have continued to come that way. And I don't think we would be good stewards of the city of Tracy, either for our funds as well as the land in that area out there, not to just say, you want us to put up another brand new hangar and you're willing to pay for 90% of it? Yeah, 95? Oh, okay, sure, sure. I guess we can figure out a way to do that. And does that give our local pilots a better place to store their plane? Yeah, but that's important too, because there's a lot of things that they do with those that are helping our community, and not the least of which now I think we might have a better opportunity of maybe at some point in time finding a business to run out of that airport. It's been a number of years. We did at one point in time have a flying service out of there. We've got a couple air sprayers that have inquired to maybe make this their home.
Well, I think things like the airport, things like the swimming pool, say a lot about a small town. They're examples of continuing to be vibrant. You lose an airport, you lose a swimming pool. These are things that all these small towns around us don't have.
Right.
So it's kind of, again, it's a way to stick out our chest a little bit and say, we got this.
Yeah.
And to lose it, and I know council members over the last year or so kind of went back and forth. Like some would say, we really need this.
Yep.
And some would say, I don't know if we do or not.
Yeah.
But big picture, a small town with an airport should hold on to its airport. A small town with an aquatic center, swimming pool, whatever you want to call it, should hold on to that and improve it. Like the pool was improved, and now the airport has been improved.
Well, I think the flying breakfast on Monday morning of Labor Day is usually a pretty good indicator of how proud our citizens are. I mean, obviously, it might be an easy way to do breakfast for all the people that are staying at your house is to take them out there, but that's
But it's more than pancakes.
Attended event, and I think it definitely kind of is something to brag about, no doubt.
One more thing to brag about before we close. Staying in that side of town, Swift Lake Park. Kind of a little hidden gem, and I think the city thinks enough of it and its importance that we're going to expand it in 26, correct?
Yes.
We're planning on it anyway.
We're planning. We had talked about it in 25. I think what we're kind of looking at right now is how big, how to lay it out, additional sites. Because if we're going to do it, the demand right now is full service. So both electric, water, and sewer. All locations have electric. Some of them actually have water supplies. None of them have sewer. We do have a dump station there, which is kind of similar to what most state parks would have or what have you. But if for individuals that are going to be there, and we've had people that stayed for the full summer, and it's a pretty good deal actually. I think what we're looking at is in the future, in a not too distant future, we could see a lot of fifth wheels and RVs coming into our community because that's what a lot of the workers on both solar and wind projects bring.
Right.
They come to the area in the early, mid-spring or whatever and stay through the
And they're
fall.
here till, yeah.
And they're here, and they don't stay in motels and they don't rent houses. They bring along their great big fifth wheel, and so
And that's
trying
what they're used
figure
to.
out- Yeah,
They don't buy hotel rooms or rent hotel rooms
not very often.
or apartments. They want to camp because that's what they know.
that's well, and it's what they've done all along, and then they own that, and they can kind of keep their stipend or whatever. But yes, I see that as a real valuable asset out there, and I see ways that we can improve. That also came up in the area of parks at some point in time, maybe figuring out what to do. The Lions, so a good shout out to them this year,
Yep.
is helping to move that picnic shelter over a little closer to the bathhouse and completely remodel it, and that's beautiful now. And so shout out to the Lions for doing
sure.
all that.
Tom, you are off the hot seat. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year, buddy.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This week's podcast was brought to you by Bitten's Roadhouse. Looking for the comforts of a home-cooked meal without the time and mess? Make the short trip to Garvin and enjoy a delicious dinner at Bitten's Roadhouse. Half-pound hamburgers, beef commercials, wraps, pizza, and more. Friday night specials include barbecue ribs or homemade Alfredo. Saturday night, stop in for amazing prime rib. Make your reservations today because they fill up fast. 507-746-4524. Open 6 days a week, it's worth the trip to Garvin for a stop at Bitten's Roadhouse.